What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Project Borough, the review and preview series here on the channel where we, of course, discuss every Borough game in detail. Today, we're doing something a little bit different as I'm joined by a very special guest. My good buddy Chris is here to discuss Borough's start to the season with me. Chris is a very insightful Borough fan. A lot of you might already follow him on various social media platforms. He's also a master of the tickets and the ticketing system and all that sort of thing. But yeah, Chris, thank you very much for agreeing to jump on the channel. How are you, first and foremost? And where can anyone who's interested in connecting with the Borough fans find you?
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me. Good. Thank you. Feel even better after those two wins. Much needed going into the national break.
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to find me will find me on, I was going to say Twitter there, but do we have to say X? I guess we do, because that's what it's called now. Chris_Borough UTB. And at the moment, one of the people who've tentatively made the sort of start an account on Blue Sky, which I think a lot of the Borough Twitter X community are doing now. So, if you go over there, there's plenty of Borough fans who've created an account over there as well. So, yeah, there's X / Twitter, there's Blue Sky.
Yeah, we'll have all the links in the description. I'll link mine as well because I've also made the tentative leap over to Blue Sky to see what that's all about. But we're here to discuss Borough's start the season because obviously we're in the November international break. It's a decent time, I think, to take stock. Obviously, previous international breaks, it's like 4 games in, 10 games in, or 9 games in, I think it was. It's still too early. Whereas now, 15 games in, heading into the Christmas period, this is where I guess the season starts, if it hasn't already. So obviously, context, we've just come off the back of 2 big wins, but now the dust has settled on them both. How have you felt, Chris, on the start to Borough's season now that the dust has settled, the 2 wins are in the bag, and we can now look back at 15 games in?
I think the overriding feeling at the start of the season is one of sort of a mixture of frustration and optimism. So I think when the fixtures came out, I thought it was a great opportunity for us to put a really strong run together at the start of the season. We normally start slow. So I thought when the fixtures came out, I looked at them, I thought, this is our chance now to have a really, really strong start to the season. Didn't quite pan out that way. I mean, we got the win against Swansea. Was that the first win in the first day of the season for 10 years, I think it was. So
it's a decade,
yeah, a decade. Hard to believe it, isn't it? We haven't won an opening game for a decade. But yeah, get that win. And then, like you, I was at Derby. Went there with cautious optimism. But yeah, after that start, and after the Leeds game especially, people are thinking, right, this is it now. And yeah, that sort of set the mood for the start of the season. When obviously at the Portsmouth home game, where I don't know how we didn't beat them, the most open team I've seen come to Riverside in years. And then we had the latte laugh stuff start with the speculation for Ipswich. We the win at Cardiff, but then we drew up with Preston. We had the Sunderland defeat, and then I think people then started getting rather concerned about the start of the season. I had us down for the first 10 games. I thought a sensible points return would be around 18 points. We came up with 14, which not the end of the world, but it's that frustrating thing of Borough always seem to make things hard for themselves, because once those fixtures are gone, you're then looking at Sheffield United, Norwich, and our Borky team, Coventry, and thinking, oh no, we've made it hard for ourselves here. But won 1, drew 1, lost 1. Yeah, okay. And then you're going into the QPR game, and there was a little bit of, I'm not sure it was pressure on Michael Carrick, but there was certainly a lot of noise on social media. Whether that's a good barometer or not, I don't know these days. But a bit of pressure on there for us to start putting some consistency together. I was of the opinion of any judgment on Michael Carrick will happen at the end of the season. It certainly isn't going to happen now. Anyone who thought Steve Gibson was generally going to even consider sacking a manager 13 games into a new 3-year contract with the club just 3 points outside the playoffs, I don't know what to tell you. It was never, ever, ever going to happen. But I was delighted with the results. oddly enough, without us playing that well or as well as we have in previous games. That's not me saying they weren't good performances, but we've played a lot better and either lost or drew than we did against QPR and Luton. Ironically, QPR, you'd probably say Seni Dieng was mad of the match for us. He was brilliant. And then Luton game, team sheet came out like many. No, Rani agreed. This could be a long afternoon. First 20 minutes, we weren't fantastic. But as soon as we got the goal, our heads lifted, their heads dropped, and we showed what we haven't shown in previous games. We showed that ruthlessness to not only get the first goal, get the second goal, get the third goal, and kill the game. So I'm looking out the season. We're just outside the playoffs. If we can put together a run of consistent results, if you look at something like what Millwall have just done recently, they went from like 16th to 5th prior to the last game with Stoke at the weekend. You know, in that 6-game run, they won 4 games in a row, got 4 clean sheets, 6 unbeaten, and it went from 16th to 5th very quickly. So we've won 2 games with a bounce. That's good. But what we now need to do is, can we go and make it 3 in a row, 4 in a row, you know, and then try and, you know, stay unbeaten for 5 or 6 games, and then suddenly from the position we're at now, if you do that, you're right in contention then with the top 2, because it's a tough league, it's a competitive league, but I feel this season is as wide open as it has been for a number of years, and I think Leeds and Sheffield United are probably the strongest teams in this league, but other than that, I don't really see a standout team that we need to fear.
Yeah, I'd agree with that in regards to Leeds and Sheffield United. In fact, I still am not 100% convinced by Sheffield United. I still feel like over Christmas, with maybe injuries, you know, their squad depth might come into question a little bit. They might start struggling a little bit. Leeds are probably the only team I can actually see going on a mad run of 8 wins out of 10. You know, they're the only team I can see doing that out of the blue. And that's what makes me equally as optimistic as I am frustrated, because I did a video on the channel which dropped probably a few days before this did on the expected points. And I know data is it's a bit of a controversial subject. A lot of people don't like it. I think it paints a very good picture of how a team's playing. And we should be second in the league for expected points. We're up there for every single metric, attacking wise. We're not that bad defensively either. I think it's been a case of waiting for things to potentially click in the final third. So where do you stand on the recent results? Because I'm sort of, at the time, I was absolutely delighted, and over the moon naturally, because I went into the QPR and the recent game against Luton thinking there probably were 2 must-wins. Like I wasn't going to accept anything less than 6 points from them both. There's obviously a caveat that they're both extremely out-of-form sides. Both their managers are probably on the brink of the sack. So the 2 games we should be winning, but is it actually a positive that Borough were able to put away teams that we've actually notably struggled against in the past, or are they 2 results that you don't think we should get too carried away about?
I certainly wouldn't get too carried away with it. QPR, just look at the league table, they're where they are for a reason. They're not a very good team. I heard the Luton Town one of the correspondents on one of the podcasts before the game, and they said they were going to come and play a high pressing game. So as soon as I heard that, I thought, well, this could be a fun game. I was thinking more. I wasn't thinking 5-1, but I thought it could be a goal fest, you know, for either team. So I think there's kind of an element of Luton that they kind of played into our hands when they came here, left themselves open for Berzo and Doak to get at them. The more you think about that, if the Carrick and the coaching staff have, which they will have done, watched Luton before that game, and they've decided that not only Riley McGree jetting off to Australia, but how Luton play would suit Danilo Berzo, then it's more credit to them for doing that and making the big call to put Berzo in. And I just feel like we were able just to cut them to ribbons, especially in the counter. Berzo and Doak tearing them apart in the wide areas, leaving all the space there for Finazaz to do what he did. So I think we're going to have it's going to be a different test after the break when you got Oxford away. they're a decent team at home this season. They're not going to play as open as Luton Town did. So, yeah, I'm certainly taking those games as a big positive. To score 9 goals in 2 games, yeah, fantastic. But I think these next block of games are going to be interesting. I think that's going to probably set a barometer for where we need to be this season, because we need to start putting this consistent run together. And you think 2 home games in the next 3, that's a good chance to do that, especially before those Burnley and Leeds away games.
Yeah, you mentioned home form as well. That's a really interesting topic of conversation, because I thought the Luton game was especially impressive because it was at the Riverside, and I felt like we needed a result at the Riverside. We needed a performance at the Riverside, because I feel like under Carrick, especially last season as well, it has very much felt like that's been a big area of our game that's let us down. We've always been a very good away side under Michael Carrick, and I do feel like that's down to teams maybe being a bit more open in their own ground. Yeah. I've always really liked this Borough team on the transition, on the break. I feel like we're very good when we're forced to pass through the thirds quickly, when we're forced to really be direct. I think that's when we flourish, even though we are a possession-based team under Carrick. And I feel like the one big question mark I still have is when we face a low block. And that's still something I have a massive question mark over. If Hull City come to the Riverside, are either of them teams, are Hull gonna come and sit with a low block? And that's where I still have big question marks over Borough. I know we've discussed the home form and what we sort of need from Borough, but home form's really important, isn't it, if you want to even consider a promotion push? And it's still something that Borough have got to improve on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I put a thread out a week or so ago about if the teams at the top, the teams if you want to get promoted, you need to be getting around 50 points at home to do that. I think last season we got around 34, so way short of what we need. Looking at the start of this season, there's a few people. Someone asked me last week how many games we lost at home, and I told them 2. They didn't believe me.
I didn't.
They didn't believe me.
Feels like more,
we
doesn't
lost
it?
more than that. We lost. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's because those draws at Portsmouth and Preston kind of we left deflated. It kind of felt like a defeat, and then you got the hangover from last season where the home form losing I was to say Coventry and Bristol City. That's pretty much every year, isn't it? We lost to Plymouth. We lost some ridiculous games last season. So I think part of it is the home form sort of from last season sort of bleeding into this season. When I had a look to see from the remaining games, what kind of run would we have to go on to hit that 50-point target? When I looked at it, it was winning 10, drawing 6 and losing 2 was kind of like a moderate scenario, which I don't think is that unachievable, considering I think we've got Sunderland, Leeds and Burnley to come at home. Other than them, it's there's no one really that you'd say is a really, really tricky game that we'd struggle to get anything from. I mean, this season, everyone we've played, I don't think there's any team that's outplayed us. We've always been in the game. It's kind of just been we've defeated ourselves quite often, most of the time. So, yeah, I think that the home form is important. The home form sets the tone around the club. If the home form is decent, if the majority of the fans go to the home games, if they go into the Riverside every week and they're seeing a decent performance and the majority of the time they're coming away seeing a victory, people are pretty happy. It's when people are not seeing good home performances or we're not getting the results, that's when things can quickly turn sour, especially in the current climate where obviously ticket prices are going up. Everyone has financial commitments. So yeah, home form is vitally important, and because the away form is pretty good, like you said, I think teams when they're at home they feel sort of the pressure to come out and have a go at us. There's not many teams, I think, who will do what Sunderland did. And I remember studying that away end about 40 seconds into the game. Ball goes back to Edmondson.
I couldn't believe
sticks
that.
His foot on top of the ball. And straight away, I just started that feeling of, really? Because it was just clear they were not going to come out and attack us. They were playing like the away team. And to be fair, they've got it to perfection and they've got the 3 points. I don't think there'll be many teams who will do that. I mean, I think if Hull City have the current manager, which who knows? When they come to Riverside, I don't think they'll set up like that. Blackburn, the Eustace, possibly. So yeah, those 2 home games will be interesting.
Yeah, I fancy us in them both, to be fair, because I've heard the word suicide football mentioned with Tim Volter's Hull City. So if he's still in charge, I feel like there could be an opportunity there for us. And Blackburn seem like a side who do want to play football. So I would look at that as a game where they might try and defend for the most part. Maybe they'll try and hit us on the break. But I would like to think we'll have joy in them games. But yeah, we've only lost twice at home, which feels surprising. But I think that's a perception thing. And it is so important because I remember under Aitor Karanka when we got promoted, I dread if I was in an opposition team, I'd dread come to Riverside. You can only imagine, how are we going to score? Let alone get a point, get a win from the Riverside again, unless you're Bristol City, who still managed to come to Riverside and get 3 points that season. And I'm sure if Coventry win the league,
8 goals we conceded at home all season. We've already conceded 8 goals at home this season, so it just shows how incredible that Aitor Karanka home record was.
Exactly, and it's interesting when you look at the league table at the moment. And Watford, I feel like, are in a bit of an anomaly because they're above us at the moment and they're like winning and losing. They've won 5 games, then they've lost 5 games away. They're just, they're a team I think will fall off. But above us, we've conceded 17 goals. The top 6 have all conceded 9 for West Brom, 6 for Burnley, 9 for Leeds, 7 for Sheffield United, and 11 for Sunderland. So Sunderland are the only team who have conceded double figures. So do you still feel like that is a problem that Borough still need to address to an extent? Because although our expected goals against numbers and defensive numbers are pretty good, another thing is on top of home form that I feel like is a big must that needs to be ticked off on a promotion checklist is good defense. Because I looked at the stats a few months back on the average number of goals that a promoted team concedes, and it's in and around 30 to 35 goals. There is the odd anomaly like Ipswich who conceded a bit more but blew teams away offensively. So do you still feel like there's a little bit of an improvement from Borough defensively, or do you think our best approach is to just do what we did in the last week and go, right, like the playoff season, we're going to just blow teams away?
No, I think defensively we have to get better. I think we have got better from last season. I don't think it helps that we've seen a constant churn of injuries in the back line. When you think of that promotion season under Aitor Karanka, how many games? I'm sure George Fenn probably played 40 games. Ayala and Gibson probably played high 30s. Same for Emilio and Sui. So that back 4 very, very rarely changed. Whereas this season and last season, it feels like there's constant change there. Like we'll start the season with Engel at left back, then we've got Borges at left back, Clark's in, Clark's out with injuries, Rav's out with an injury at the minute. Thank goodness we signed Edmondson because we're really short there. So he's at the left side centre half, right side centre half, depending on whether it's Rav or Clark who are fit this match. Aylin's probably been one of the main constants, but then at least he's got a left back to cover for injury. So I don't think in Carrick's defence, I don't think the injuries are helping at all, because I think defence is especially is one of those areas of the field where those partnerships are so important. Then that understanding, I know when we played Stoke in the cup, we got beat 5-0. Where I was sitting, it was right, sort of looking at where Matt Clark and Lucas Engel were, and I think Clark was trying to overcompensate for him at times, and then he was getting dragged out of position, and it was all just a bit of a mess. So, yeah, I'd like to see the defensive numbers improve, because as we just touched on earlier with Millwall, those 4 wins in a row they got, all 4 clean sheets.
Yeah,
won them all 1-0. You only have, if you keep a clean sheet, you only have to score 1 goal. So, and it's one of those, isn't it, where I think we had the expectation when we got in the playoffs that we were hoping that our goals would get us promoted. But people who follow the stats and the numbers and the history and all that were telling us beforehand it's the teams with the best defence who are more likely to go up, and that was Luton Town that season.
Yeah. It's always the same, isn't it? It's a constant theme I've noticed, and that was something that we were sort of told ahead of the Coventry game as well, how good they were defensively. And lo and behold, for the second playoff campaign running, Borough didn't score a single goal, which I think is incredibly ironic. But yeah, you mentioned partnerships and the spine, and I recall again alluding to the Karanga team because that's the most recent successful Borough team we had. That had a really good spine with partnerships in terms of you had Ayala and Gibson, Dimmy as well, someone not to be dismissed, Ledbetter and Clayton. And then the number of options we had up front in the forward areas, I thought were similarly solid, but you could also bring in a David Nugent. You could bring in, you had Kike, Stuani, Downing, Adoma, Gaston Ramirez was that game changer. One big question moving on to sort of Borough's squad, and this is a question I'd be interested to ask you because I've heard various different arguments to this, but where does Borough's squad sit with you currently in terms of our competition, the teams we're up against? Because some people say we're a top 2 squad. Some people say we're top 6. Some people say maybe a top 2-11, but squad depth's not quite there. So are our expectations right with the current Borough team we have, or do you think maybe people are getting maybe the expectations are too heightened due to the squad maybe?
My personal expectations coming into this season were for playoff place. I think if we don't get in the playoffs, I think it's been an underachieving season. I think the squad is good enough to challenge for the top 2. I'm not saying, if we finish top 2, I wouldn't be shocked. However, I don't think top 2 should be the expectation. I know we beat Sheffield United, but obviously they had Hamer who wasn't available. I think was it Souza as well. Wasn't available. So yeah, so it wasn't their best team. Might have been different on the day. I don't know. And that's it. I think the Leeds first team and their depth is a little bit better than us. But that's not to say that I said again that we can't get top 2, because if either of those for whatever reason can't put consistent run together or have a bad patch, there's no reason we can't capitalise on it. So that's it. I think it's certainly we have a top 6 squad that should be finishing in the playoffs. What happens after that, I don't know, because it's one of those, and I know they said the playoffs is a lottery. It is and it isn't. But if Michael Carrick got us in the top 6 and we didn't get promoted for whatever reason, I don't think anyone could say that it's been a bad season, because I think that is the aim, getting the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm not quite subscribed to the idea that this squad should make us God-given right to be top 2. I feel like the 11, I think, is competitive amongst the majority of positions in the league. I'd say maybe, I'm a fan of Seny Dieng, but I'm open to admit that I wouldn't say he's top 2 goalkeeper in terms of his shot stopping. I think he's obviously in the team massively because of his distribution and his composure on the ball. The other areas, I'd say left back, I still remain a little bit unconvinced, but I think that's probably down to the fact that Borges hasn't had a real run in the team. And in fairness, I thought he was actually starting to settle in quite nicely before. Obviously, he's recently dropped out the team. I have no doubt centre-back. I think the number of centre-backs we have is a slight embarrassment of riches in that position, to be honest. Yeah. I think they'd step into all championship teams, I'd imagine, all 5 of them, to be honest with you. And the same for the midfield too. I will not have, and I know I feel passionately on this. Ironically, I've used the word passion. I feel strongly on the fact that Hackney and Morris are levels above in terms of our midfield duo, and no one else in the squad even comes close. And I also quite fancy us in the attacking areas with Doak, McGree, Lath and Conway. It's then the drop-off, isn't it, of the squad? Yeah. Right back, Dykesdale. I'll be honest, I think he's impressed. I've been really happy with Dykesdale. Is he top 2? No, but I've been quietly, happy with how he's come in. But then there's a drop-off in midfield with Howson and Barlasser. There's a drop-off with Bergzorg. I know he had a good game, but he'll equally frustrate us in equal measure, I'm sure. And then even behind Azaz, Gilbert, unproven yet. On the right, we know Isaiah Jones has sort of dropped off massively. So I'd say we've got a top 4-11, maybe a playoff squad. But like you, it would be absolutely heartbreaking to obviously get into the playoffs and not make it. Because I don't know where you stand on this, but do you feel like this is this squad is a culmination of work with the recruitment team? And if we weren't to go up this season, do you reckon we'd lose a lot of our big players and we would take a slight step back in terms of the squad we've got now? Is it now? I know it's not now or never, because there's always an opportunity in the next season, but does it feel like this is probably the best opportunity for Borough to take that step into the Premier League this season?
I think if we didn't get promoted, I think there'd be a lot of work behind the scenes for the recruitment team to do. I think Letty Laugh would almost certainly leave, which it wouldn't be the disaster that it would have been last summer. Now Tommy Conway's come in, and I'm a big fan of competition in the team. I think if you don't have that competition, you can get complacent. And I think there's players like maybe Isaiah Jones who's possibly got complacent over the years, thinking that and now Ben Doak's come in. He's suddenly not the top dog there anymore. So I think if we lose Laugh, obviously Hackney, he'd be another one who we think the vultures would be circling for him. Rav van den Berg, another one. Yeah, it would be a blow up, but I don't think it would be the disaster that many people are painting out would be, because, like I said, Laugh drops out. We've got Conway, Hackney. We'd have to find a central midfielder, and we've already discussed the Bowson and Richards we've got at centre half, and I know Edmondson's not here permanently, but maybe there's something we could do there. So yeah, it would be a travesty if we didn't get in the playoffs this season. But at the same time, I think there's a few people who are making out to be a bit existential, which I don't really agree with. If we didn't go up, we don't go up. I've got a lot of faith and trust in this recruitment team. A lot more than I did in previous years.
Yeah,
the years of likes of Gestead, Shotton, and all the rest of them. Oh yeah,
Adling Bidiora.
But yeah, Ashley Fletcher, for £7 million. I think the days of us, George Saville and Aidan Flint, the likes of us spending silly money on ridiculous players are long gone. And I think Kim Scott has brought a real professionalism to the recruitment team now, and there's very, very few misses now. So if the worst were to happen and we didn't get promoted, I'd be very disappointed. However, I would have trust that they would be able to find replacements for some of these players.
Yeah, I'm with you on that with the recruitment team. I still get quite baffled with how they get pelters at times, but there's not one recruitment team in the world that doesn't get a signing wrong, doesn't make a slight misjudgment on a player. It happens. It'll happen at Manchester City. It'll happen at Liverpool. It'll happen at any level. And I think you just have to take yourself back to a few years ago when we were overspending on players on stupid contracts who were already past the prime, and now we're investing in potential as well as quality players who, Letty Laugh's come in and done extremely well. I'll hold my hands up. I wasn't quite convinced when we gave him the number 9 shirt. I thought, who's this guy? The finding of Rav van den Berg looks like an absolute unbelievable find. Even Ben Doak, being able to beat other championship teams to him. I'd not heard of Ben Doak before he was linked with us. And I just thought, well, we're signing another attacker. Do we need another attacker? And he's ended up being an unbelievably, game changer. I don't know what you want to call him. How would you sort of sum up some of the stars in this team? We could go through, I guess, every individual in a sense, but Ben Doak has been an absolute revelation, hasn't he? Where does he stand? I've seen in comparisons to Adama Traore. I've seen comparisons to Janino, I've heard as well, in terms of exciting players. Where does Ben Doak stand? Because, he's a player that's going to go all the way if his head's right, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. I have little doubt that we'll be looking back in a few years' time thinking, how did we have him here? How did he put on a Middlesbrough shirt in the championship?
There's been a few of them, hasn't there? There's been a few of them who've left a few years later have gone on, yeah.
Yeah. Morgan Rogers, who would believe that, this time last year he was playing for us at, I don't know, Port Vale in the Cup and coming off the bench against Birmingham.
He was on the bench, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I always rated Rogers, but I never in a million years thought that it would be this quickly that he's rose. So, but that's testament to the recruitment team and the coaching team for the work they did with him. Ben Doak, like you, I didn't know anything about the lad when we signed him, just that he was from Liverpool, and there was ourselves and Hull were in contention to sign him. So when we beat Hull, we said the chair, okay, yeah. We've got a lot of players who can play in the attacking areas of the pitch, so let's see what he can do. I never in a million years thought he would be this integral to the team. Now he's one of the first names of the team sheet. I mean, for me, Ryan McGree's the most important player in the starting 11.
I'd agree.
For his ability and the role he does for the team. But Ben Doak, for me, is probably the second name on that team sheet, because he's one of those players who, if I was an opposition fan and I was watching Ben Doak just torturing our left back, I'd be thinking, this isn't fair. He's not their players alone. He's far too good for this league. Far too good for this league. He's a cheat code at this level. You see opposition teams double up on him, and he still gets past. He still manages to get past. I think it was only Watford who effectively marked him out the game. And when you get people doubling up on him, it creates space to finish Azaz, and then he has more room to play in. I mean, I've been critical of Azaz this season. I certainly haven't wrote him off like many have, but I think at the start of the season, he had that chance against Swansea that he, I know we won the game, but he could have put the game to bed there, missed that right in front of the goal, and then the Watford one, it wasn't as easy as people made it out, but could have done better with the header, and he missed a few big chances, and he was taking too many touches. But if he can produce the form that he's shown in these last two games, going back to the Karanka team, he's probably going to be the best number 10 we've had since Gaston Ramirez, probably.
Yeah.
On that form. I'm just hoping that my only concern is that, it's one thing to do it when we're, in those games, or can he do it, if we're away at Oxford, and it's 0-0 with 10 minutes to go, can he grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and can he, go and put one on the plate for laugh, or can he go and stick on the top corner then? So, but yeah, Ben Doak, for me, I've been referring to him as he's Adama Traore with a footballing brain. I absolutely love Adama Traore. He's one of the players. I know everyone, it's cool to sort of hate on the purist era, but watching him play football was one of the most exciting individual players I've seen in Riverside, because when he got the ball and when he ran, he had no idea what he was going to do, and to be honest, he didn't either. So it was always exciting to watch him. Yeah. And Ben Doak, I say, he's just superb, absolutely superb. What again? Praise to the recruitment team, because many of us hadn't heard of him. When we signed him, there was a lot of praise getting dished out for him from people associated with Liverpool. I've seen they've got a recall clause in January. Let's hope that they don't activate that. I mean, I rate him, but is he really going to get ahead of Mohamed Salah? I very much doubt that. So I think it's in his best interests and Liverpool's interests for him to stay at Middlesbrough and hopefully help them to a successful campaign.
Yeah, I'm the same with you. I've been a bit hesitant to say publicly, because we know what social media is like, but I've been a bit too hesitant to maybe pose the question of, is Ben Doak already better than what Adama Traore was? Because I know there's so much love and sentiment for Adama Traore, and I understand that. I remember when I don't know if it was his debut or not, but I remember when we played Tottenham at home in the Premier League, and I don't know if that was his debut, but I
think it was, yeah.
I remember him. I've just got when them vivid memories of random Borough games come into your head, and I remember him picking the ball up, probably not too far off the outside of our box, and he beat about 5 or 6 Tottenham players, and we were in, and it was like I'd never seen him before. I thought, what on earth is this? He was out of this universe, but did he have the composure? Did he have the ability, even though he's running at 100 miles an hour and his body's moving at 100 miles an hour, his brain was able to, was Adama's brain able to keep up with his legs like Ben Doak? Because I think, his final ball is still not great a lot of the time. And one thing I noticed when he first came in was that he was sort of powering balls across the box, which I thought he was just like hitting them really hard. But I've noticed he is starting to refine that. When he was played in by Hackney, against Luton, his cutback for Azaz was absolutely perfect. Azaz could just walk onto that and strike it. So I am starting to get fall in love with a lone player. It happens every season.
Don't follow a lone player.
Happens every year. It's Ben Doak this season, but I just find it so ironic and beautiful in a way that, you know, in football, an 18-year-old kid who wasn't probably a main part of the transfer recruitment, you know, comes available last minute. We bring him in, you know, with no real hopes or expectations amongst the fan base. He's just another attacker, and he might end up being one of the most integral pieces of a potential playoff promotion team. But that leads me on to the next question, because on the other side of that, and this links into what you were saying about Riley McGree, because I'm with you 100%. There is no one else in this team who gets near Riley McGree in terms of his ability to fit and suit the role on the left. It was different on Saturday with Luton because I think we were set up in a different way. I think we were wanting to get their defenders 1v1. We were wanting to get Bergsorg running in behind Lath, Doak. I think it was a bit different. It probably wasn't the right sort of battle for Riley McGree, so fair play to Carrick on that. But is there an over-reliance, or do you worry there could be an over-reliance on Doak, Azaz, McGree in that trio in behind Lath or Conway? Is there a slight worry in your mind that Borough might become too over-reliant on one, or maybe the three of them, the pair of them, if we were to maybe get injuries?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think when I looked at it off the top of my head, I think it's in the 5 games that Azaz and Doak have played. I think we've won 4 and drew 1. The draw was Norwich, so which we should have won if Conway puts a penalty away. So you're thinking if he does that, then yeah, when them two play, we are streets ahead of most teams in that area of the pitch. I think that may be why Carrick is, as much as fans, we find it frustrating before international break that McGree is on the bench, or coming back from international break, McGree is on the bench. We're thinking, well, he's flew the other side of the world and he's played for Australia, so why are we benching him? But maybe that is in Carrick's thinking that he needs to manage the minutes, he needs to manage the fatigue, and obviously Ben Doak sat out a game. I can't remember which one it was. Was it Coventry? Or was
Coventry, yeah.
Coventry, yeah, sat out that one again. I think that's maybe why Carrick is making those unpopular decisions to bench them or leave them out the squad to manage the fatigue, because I think he probably does realise that these guys are so important to our season. We can't afford for them to break down with an injury. My concern would be Finn Azaz. If he was to get injured, who would come in there? Well, Alex Gilbert's probably the obvious one, but he's one of those players who I think not many people would have been too sad at the back of the last season if he'd have left in the summer. But then he picked up the end of the season, and suddenly everyone's thinking, oh, he's a good player. And start the season, played brilliant at Leeds, and then all of a sudden there's rumours that he's gone out on loan, and everyone online's like, no, we can't let this lad go on loan. He's too good. He's picked up an injury, and as far as I'm aware, I maybe I've missed something. He's dropped off the face of the earth, and we haven't seen him again.
Twisted knee, I think. I'm sure I heard he twisted his knee in training or something.
Yeah, but I personally haven't seen any updates. I don't know when he's due back. I don't know anything about it. It's one of those ones where he falls into a void, and then he'll one day appear on the subs bench when the lineups come out. So I think if Azaz is injured, Gilbert's the obvious one. If Gilbert's not available, we're kind of scratching our heads there. You're thinking, do you put Conway there, but put Lath up front? But then I don't think Conway suits that number 10 role, and I think he's kind of said he's a number 9 as well. So that would be, I think Azaz is probably the player who, if he does drop out, I know if McGree dropped out, I know that it's a drop off and they're not the same type of player, but Berzo could come in there. If Azaz wasn't available, I'd be a bit concerned as to how we plug that gap, because there's not really an obvious, if Gilbert's not available, choice to go in there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like Gilbert, and I think there's a lot of potential in him. But I think there's quite a few players like that which are definitely potential players. I think Micah Hamilton's a potential player. Yeah. There's a few of them in the team who we're hopeful will come good, but you can't hang your hat on them. I'd say if there was an injury to McGree, I couldn't hang my hat on Hamilton. And that's where my one concern is. If the attacking, I think it's clear what our best attacking four is. And if the game is needing a tweak in tactic, it was very, very reassuring to see that Lath and Bergzorg were able to come in and do the job. I mean, we met up outside the Riverside, didn't we? Before the Luton game, and we equally looked at each other and sort of let out a big sigh and went, "What's he done?" And I remember messaging you. I don't even think it was half time. I think I didn't have any signal. I messaged you going, "Well, what the hell do we know?"
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
So you said the front four is obvious. Would you start with Latte Lath or Tommy Conway against Oxford?
Well, I'd still stick with Tommy Conway, but I think the beauty we've got with the pair of them is they offer different things. So if we're needing a forward who's needing to maybe link up play a little bit more, then I think Tommy Conway is your guy who maybe needs to drop deeper and bring the wingers into play or whoever. If you're wanting someone who's going to run in behind and hustle and harry, that's where I think Lath comes in. So we've got different players that I think have different strengths, suit different games, which we might have to start taking into consideration when we are looking at a starting 11. I know a lot of people clamour for consistency, don't change a winning team, and I get that completely to an extent, but maybe we do just have players that are just going to be more suited to different games. But one thing I will compliment Carrick on, and I mentioned this on Twitter the other day, I think his man management of Lath has been top draw. I thought he dropped him at the right time when I think he needed dropping. He was 1 goal in 10, I think, at the time. And that, I think, gave Lath the motivation to make the impact he rightfully should have off the bench. And it also allowed Tommy Conway to get a run in the team. So now we've got 2 informed number 9s. And we've got the pick of both of them. So I think Michael Carrick's deserves a lot of credit for the way he's managed that situation. But then you've got Marcus Forss. I still rate Marcus Forss so highly. I still think there's an argument he's the best finisher at the club.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens? Does he compete with Doak? Because again, there's a completely different player there. Do you put him up front and do you have 3 forwards up front? I mean, the options are, again, ridiculous, aren't they?
Yeah, it's always nice to have options. And we're talking about, obviously, Lath or Conway, which one do we prefer? But when you come up to a period now where you've got Oxford, Blackburn midweek, Hull, and then Burnley the Friday, and then you've got Leeds on the Tuesday, we're starting to get those midweek games coming up now.
Yeah.
Especially coming to the festive period. It's not a bad thing to have. You can put Lath up top, you can put Conway up top, you can switch them around after an hour or 70 minutes or whatever, and you can keep that fresh there. So to have 2 fit and firing number 9s, it's a good thing to have. And yeah, absolutely spot on. I put up before the Sheffield United game, I thought Lath should have been dropped, not because I don't rate him, but because I think he needed sort of a kick to say, look, you can't keep missing chances. Your place isn't certain. And to be fair, I did tweet when he came on. I thought he looks really fired up here. So it wasn't a shock to go and see him score because he looked like for the first time in a few weeks. Because I think prior to that, he sort of his head was down. You can see his confidence shot to pieces. When he came on against Sheffield United, you could see he's like, right, okay, and he looked really fired up. And then obviously he's got the goal. I mean, that goal he scored against Luton on the term, that's not the goal of a player who's low on confidence. So I just hope that the circus around him doesn't start again in January. But it's one of those where it's in everyone's interest. It's in the club's interests. It's in Lath's interests. It's his agent's interests that Lath is fit, firing and scoring goals for his football club because, one, it helps us get results, might help us get promotion, and if we don't, it'll help Lath get his big money move and his agent will get a nice payday out of it.
Yeah, I think that'll be the message. I think it'll be the same stance that it was in the summer. It'll be a case of we're not going to let anyone go. Maybe the odd loan here or there, but yeah, I think it'll be a case of keeping the squad together. And if we don't make it, there might be a reassurance that in the summer, right, yeah, it's fair enough. We've gave it a go. We haven't made it. we might look at it then. But I agree with Lath, and that turn and finish, I thought that's the Latte Lath of last season.
Yeah.
And if we can get him firing as frequently as he did the back end of last season, backed up by Tommy Conway. The one thing I've been critical of Azaz, and I'm a massive Finn Azaz fan, I defend Finn Azaz quite hard, is he wasn't adding enough goals to his game. So I'm hoping that's the start of that with him as well. And I'll always have a lot of faith with Doak and McGree on either side. So it is exciting. But looking ahead to when we get back from the international break, it's a really interesting run of fixtures. So I've got the next, I'll say 6, because 6 is a nice number. What are you expecting / how are you feeling ahead of the next 6 games? Because I think the initial week is one where I don't think I'm being too overzealous by saying we should win all 3. Oxford, Blackburn, Hull, 2 home games in 3, as you say. What an opportunity that is.
Yeah.
We then have 2 very tough away games, which you'd say on paper would be the toughest, but it's Borough, so who the hell knows?
Yeah.
And then a home game against Millwall, who are not to be underestimated at all, given the form they're in. So how big of a block of games is coming up now, and what do you expect Borough to get from them, and how do you reckon they might go? Put your neck on the line.
So yeah, if it's Borough, you're saying we're going to lose to Blackburn and Hull at home, and we're going to beat Burnley and Leeds away. That tends to be how it works. Yeah. But I think from the Oxford, Blackburn and Hull sort of block of games, that block of 3, I think you look at you want to get minimum 7 points. You want 9, but I think if you took 7 from those,
I'd say 7.
I don't think you'd be too upset. Then we'll be too upset with that. And then going into the Burnley and Leeds one, you're kind of thinking, well, you take 2 draws, but then in a sense, well, not in a sense, in the reality, you're better off winning one and losing one, aren't you? You're a point better off. So
yeah.
I think the Burnley one would be an interesting one. They don't concede many goals at all, do they? So I think it'll be 2 very different matches. I think Burnley one, it might be a bit of a game of chess, whereas Leeds has the potential to be the game of basketball that it was last season. I think it was 3-2 at half time last season at Elland Road. So yeah, I think if we can, the target has to be with the Blackburn, Hull and Millwall, pick up 9 points from those games, win your 3 home games, and then you hope maybe 4. If you get 4, if you get the 3 wins at home, and you then get 4 points from Oxford, Burnley, and Leeds, I think you'd say that's a pretty good points tally.
Yeah. So you've got 4 wins, and was it 3 wins, 4 wins? Home games wise, we've got three home games.
4 wins, a draw, and a loss.
Yeah. So it's 13 points from 6. So it's just over 2 points, which I've always said the target was 2 points a game. I've not looked at the table all that much up until recently. I've always wanted Borough to just keep as close to 2 points per game as possible, and we have slowly slipped away from that. But I'm absolutely with you on the home games. I think it comes down to that really, really important point once again. It's an essential thing. You just don't get promoted by being a good away team and mediocre at home. It just doesn't happen. And you can afford to be maybe not brilliant away, but still good. And I think still be up there, because we were a playoff team last season on the road. I think we were 6th, and I think we're 7th now for away form. So, and that's taken into consideration. We're 7th away in the league, and we've lost 3 away games, which I think tells you how much emphasis is actually on the home form. So I would agree with you. I think Blackburn, Hull and Millwall are games we should be looking to win. And by then, who knows where Millwall might be. Maybe they've just gone through a bit of a purple patch. Their underlying numbers are actually quite impressive when you look at them. But I still would like to think Borough would have enough. Plus, the mighty Josh Coburn won't be eligible. So there's one thing less for us to worry about. We'll just have to worry about Duncan Watmore coming back and scoring a hat-trick.
Just sticking in the top corner, isn't he?
Yeah. But away-wise, yeah. I think the Oxford game's a big one. That might set the tone for how we get along. Because if we were to drop points at Oxford, one way or the other, I wouldn't say pressure would mount again on the 2 home games, but I think there'll be a little bit more importance on what we get out of them too. And if we were to maybe drop points in one or two of them home games off the back of dropping points against Oxford, sorry, I think not pressure, but people would start getting a little bit disgruntled. So I think it's actually really important we go to Oxford and win, and then 3 wins in a row. You're faced with 2 home games, and you're thinking, what an opportunity to get 5 wins on the bounce. It's absolutely huge. So I don't want to put too much pressure on the Oxford game, but I think it is a big game just to not set us back to where we've been before, because we've only picked up back-to-back wins twice this season. So, it's all good beating QPR and Luton, but if we were to return back to, dropping points, stupid points, you sort of feel like you're back to square one again. So
yeah, because the last time we
quite
picked
big
up
on
2 straight wins, we went and had 2 straight defeats.
Yeah, exactly. That was the Watford and Bristol City games, am I right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we know we're sitting high and mighty now, and we're off the back of good results, but maybe the international break come at a bad time. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I think it's a good chance for us to take stock, but I think the Oxford game will certainly set the tone for what might come afterwards. And then, like you, I actually would fancy us at Burnley. I think defensively they're very strong, but I'm not convinced by them going forwards at all.
No.
I don't think they're a very good attacking side. I mean, Scott Parker's teams always find a way to win annoyingly, but I think with our attacking players and the chances we create, I'd fancy us actually to get a 2-0 away at Burnley like we did West Brom. A good solid away win, and then Leeds we might win 6-5 or lose it 6-5 or 7-6. So yeah, it's a big block, but we'll finish on, I guess, the overall season, looking ahead to the very, very end. What's your gut feeling on where this season's going to go? Do you think that this is a team that has been on the periphery of doing really good things, clicking, and now we have, or maybe when we do, we will be a team that will fire ourselves into the playoffs, top 4, maybe even top 2? What's your gut feeling telling you? Where do you think this season's going to go? And I know it's very difficult to say that because it's a Liverpool Football Club, but what's your gut feeling telling you?
Yeah, I think it's one of those where I'm like you. I'm a big believer in the underlying numbers. The underlying numbers have been there all season. It was just a case of being Middlesbrough Football Club, being Middlesbrough Football Club. We've consistently punched ourselves in the face and finding ways to defeat ourselves, whether it's Isaiah Jones playing a 50-yard back pass short, Seny Dieng coming up with his goal for no reason.
Close line in Dieng, a close line in Clark, yeah.
Yeah, Conway missing that penalty at Norwich, and then obviously the Watford collapse. Better team in 75 minutes, and then someone managed to throw the game away. Unbelievable. But so the underlying numbers have been there. We've just been literally defeating ourselves. So I'm optimistic that we can get the playoffs. That as disappointing and frustrating at times as the season's been, when you look at the league table, we're 7th. So you think, okay, and we haven't put any consistency together. So you kind of think that the run of consistency, in theory, isn't too far. You got to hope it's not too far away. I think we can finish in the playoffs. Whether we get through the playoffs and get promoted is an entirely different question. You'd have to wait and see who else was in there with us and who we were paired with, and because if we're against someone like a West Brom, I think that would potentially be quite a close game. With Carlos Corberan, they're a decent defensive team. But then if we were in there with or Burnley, something like that could be a bit of a game of chess, like the Coventry one that's gone previously. But if we're in there with someone like a Watford, you think that it could be someone that we could overpower with our goal scoring. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I think taking stock now, there's been times when we've been frustrated with lack of consistency, but there's plenty of reasons to be optimistic now. And going into this period, this is the best one now. I don't believe there's any international breaks till March now. Thank God. Thank the Lord. So this is it now. The season starts proper now. It's all hands on deck now. So now this period quite often defines where you're gonna finish in the season, because you either give yourself far too much to do, like last season. We tailed off massively last season and gave out. It got to the point where people said, "Oh well, if we win the last 7 games in a row, or we win the last 8, or it got stupid." So if we put ourselves like we did in the playoff season with Tuba and Archer and everyone, get ourselves in a position where we can finish the season sort of, I'm not going to say foot off the gas, but you don't have to go full throttle to sort of get in there, and hopefully we can prepare properly and finish the season well. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I think you always have to be as a Borough fan, as easy as it is to be pessimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic about what this team can do.
Yeah, I'm with you on that with playoffs. I thought this before the 2 wins we've just had, and I think after the Coventry defeat, we were still only 3 points off the playoffs. And I sort of looked at it and I thought, are we lucky that we're only 3 points adrift, or is that just a sign of just where the league is at? Because I thought after the Coventry game, it's only going to take a few teams to put a run together and we'll be left in the dust. But equally, if we're the team that puts a few run of results together, Millwall have shown we might be eyeing up 3rd, 4th in a matter of weeks. And then suddenly the narrative flips completely, and Borough fans are going into the Christmas period going, well, if we win the next 3 of this, we'll be on the back of top 2. I mean, we'll be on I think when we were beating Norwich, we were 3 points or 2 points off second briefly. There was like a brief window where it was like, oh my God, it's on. And then we blew it. So things can change incredibly quickly, for better or for worse. And it wouldn't surprise me at the end of this 6-game spell that we've just discussed, if we've went back to being, self-destructive Borough, and we're 4 or 5 points off the playoffs again, and people are going, oh God, the season's petering out. It equally wouldn't surprise me if we go and win the majority of them and people are going, right, top 2, it's on. And then suddenly it's a different ball game. But for me, I'd like us to just, as you say, be comfortably in the playoffs, but only comfortable to an extent, where maybe if we want to push top 2, we can. But if we don't, it's fine. We're in the playoffs. We're not at risk of dropping out. And then I'd be interested to see how Carrick managed it, because he obviously rested a lot of our big players last time and arguably took his foot off too much. But I think the league is so wide open. I only look at Leeds and Sheffield United and maybe Burnley. I think 4th downwards is absolutely anybody's. And there's not one team out of them top 3. And even Burnley, I have, slight, I'm not 100%.
Scott Parker shit reservations about.
Exactly. The football terrorist that he is, he just keeps finding results. Even them, I'm not convinced by. So all the playoff places are up for grabs. And I think it would be a drastic underachievement, given the numbers we're knocking out, if this team didn't get there.
Yeah, so, and I think Sunderland's fixtures are also turning quite tricky for them. So it'd be interesting to see after this 3-4 game run, not just where we are, but where they are as well, because whether they're the real deal or not.
Well, hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Hopefully not. But West Brom have had a drop off. Loads of the top teams have either not got going yet or have come out the blocks firing and have had a drop off. And Sunderland are probably starting to go through that now. So I think every team will go through peaks and troughs. I'm hoping we've been through our bumpy patch and now we're going to put our foot down. But that's been a discussion looking at and reflecting on Borough's start to the season and looking ahead. I'd like to get you back on, Chris, at some point. We'll, I think, find a good stopping point. I don't know when the next period will be where we'll actually have time to take a breath.
That's it, yeah.
Maybe January in and around the sort of FA Cup 3rd round.
That's it, yeah. Once we're all full of Christmas chocolate and all that sort of stuff, and we're starting our New Year's diets.
Yeah, maybe we'll both jump back on when we're 5 stone heavier, and we'll have a pit stop to where Borough are at come the new year, because I always have this horrible PTSD that Borough always turn and flop like a fish in the new year. I don't know if that's historically correct.
As long as I've been a supporter, it's the saying I hear every year is downward the decorations. So hopefully it's not the case this year.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll reconvene then. But I hope everyone who's checked in, usually checks in to all the Project Borough videos I've enjoyed. This one's been a little bit different. It's been great to have you on, mate, and it's been good to chat with someone else about the Borough instead of chatting to myself. So I appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely do this again. Do you want to quickly point out once again where people can find you, just in case they missed it at the start, if they want to obviously follow you on the odd socials?
Yeah, the best place to find me is on Twitter/X, and my handle on there is Chris_Borough_UTB.
Awesome. And if anyone wants to travel to any Borough away games and they want to know any info on allocation, ticket numbers, this is the guy. He knows the lot. He's the guy. But thanks for coming on, Chris. And to anyone who's watching, do subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this over on any of the podcast providers where this will go up as well, do give me a like, a follow, and a rating over there. And most importantly, leave me with a comment in the section below with your thoughts on all the things we've discussed in this video. And yeah, I'll be back. And my next Borough video will probably be looking ahead to the Oxford game, which hopefully will be 3 points. But until then, take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. Cheers, Chris. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.